أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والحمد لله الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبو القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أما بعد، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام. سلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. This lecture is the last of the lectures over the last 10 days of Muharram, and we ought to now look at the journey beyond. And by this I mean, let us look at what is our responsibility as the Azadar of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. What is expected of us, and how do we take this Aza of Imam alayhi salatu wassalam to make it universal for the people beyond the Shia community. Karbala comes to revive us. It comes to bring or resuscitates us of those of us who are in deep slumber, and people who see this huge and great institution of Azadari to be something ordinary and simple. The Ayyam of Aza come to not only bring an awakening, but revive the entire person within the individual himself to wake up to the reality of what Imam alayhi salam did in Karbala. The idea of celebration of the Ayyam of Milad and Khushali, or the notion of commemoration when we commemorate the events of Wafat, are not mere empty rituals. They are programs that have been organized for us to be able to take lessons from the lives of Imams alayhimus salam and to grow through these lessons. When we study the lives of our Imams, we can learn and apply those lessons into our lives and move forward in our lives. Let us look at immediately the situation of the Shia community immediately after the event of Karbala. 10th of Muharram 61 after Hijrah, the tragedy of Karbala took place. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam lost his entire family in the plains of Karbala. Our fourth Imam and the ladies were taken captives. And let me emphasize this point a little more. I want you to look at the circumstances of the Imam alayhi salam after the event of Karbala, of the fourth Imam alayhi salam, and the circumstances around Imam alayhi salam and within the Shia community at large. There is no Imam who has assumed the office of Imamat in the more tragic circumstances than Imam Zainul Abidin. We heard in the Masa'ib that the first day of his imamat and the realization of the responsibility of the office of imamah upon him, so Imam Zainul Abidin have to witness the head of his father Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on a spearhead. One of the most tragic of circumstances in which Imam assumes the office of Imam. Above that, he is a captive. He is heavily chained. The women of the house of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have been taken captives. Their veils have been snatched. Their tents have been looted. Ropes have been tied around their arms. Little children's ropes have been tied on their necks. This is the circumstance. 10th of Muharram, Ashura takes place, and Imam is captive. The Shia community is in a state of confusion. Their Imam, who is going to be the next Imam after Imam al-Hussein, is a captive. He is taken, he is arrested, he is taken from Karbala to Kufa and then imprisoned in Sham. So the Shia community does not know what is happening, who is leading them. At the same time, in Medina, or in Saudi Arabia or the Hijaz at that particular time, at the same time, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya claims imamat, or not that he claims imamat, but it is claimed that he claims imamat. And there are people who are now seeing Muhammad Hanafiya as the imam of the time. And the people who followed Muhammad Hanafiya, or the movement, was known as the movement of Kaysaniya. You can imagine the state of chaos within the Shia community. And Imam alayhi salam is imprisoned. Imam is in the prison. The Shia community is awaiting for the Imam, while in there, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya is claimed to have claimed Imam. Under these circumstances, Imam alayhi salam finds himself in the most difficult circumstances. To keep the mission of Imam alayhi salam alive. To not let the blood of Hussein go in vain. To not let the sacrifices of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam go in vain. To not let the blood of Qasim and Akbar and Abbas go to vain. To not let the sacrifices of the ladies of the household of Ahlul Bayt go to vain. To make sure that the mission of Imam Hussein not only remains alive, but is sustained until the day of Qiyam. This was the mission of Imam Zainul Abidin. So he needed to, at the same time, save and also preserve the mission of Imam Hussein. Number two, he needed to expose Yazid and the ill intentions of Yazid. And the Yazid of not only of that time, but of all times. And at the same time, he needed to make sure that he had to bring a system and had to found an institution that will make sure that the Aza of Imam Hussein and the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam remains alive until the day of Qiyam. On one hand, the Shia community is in a state of confusion, chaos. It does not know what is happening. The Imam is in the prison. Kaysaniya movement has started taking place. People are seeing Muhammad ibn Hanafiya as the Imam. And here there was one man, or there is one man in front of him who is saying, لعبت هاشم بالملك فلا خبر جاء ولا وحي نزل, that the Banu Hashim have played with the mulk. There is no news that has come, nor has there been any revelation. And he is claiming to be the Khalifa of the Muslim Ummah and demanding submission to him. Imam Hussain alayhi salam is no more. Imam Zainul Abidin is in prison. So that was the first thing, how to keep the mission of Imam alayhi salam alive. Another aspect or another challenge that Imam alayhi salam was facing, and this was faced by all the Imams, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Janab Zainab, Imam Zainul Abidin, and you will see this more in the events of Karbala as you read the texts, and you will find that this was more in the events of Karbala, prior to Karbala, in Karbala, and beyond Karbala. To remind the people, to tell the people of who they were. For example, when Imam Hussain alayhi salam was summoned in Medina by the governor then Walid before his departure to Mecca and then onwards to Kufa, Imam alayhi salam, look at the words he is using. He says to Walid, Inna ahlu baytin nubuwa, we are the household of Nubuwa, wa ma'dinul risala, wa mukhtalaful malaika. We are the household of Rasulullah, and not ordinary household, the household of Nubuwa. We are the ma'dinul risala. We are the mukhtalaful malaika. We are the people, or we are the household where the angels brought the revelations. They ascended and descended from our house. And then he wanted to expose Yazid. And he said, wa Yazid, fasiqun, sharibul khamr, qatilun nafsil muharrama, mu'linun bil fisq, mithli la yubayi'u mithla. He is a drunkard. He's an open sinner. He's a killer of innocent souls. I, Hussein, will not do bay'ah, will not pledge the oath of allegiance in the hands of Yazid. So you will see here, Imam alayhi salam is separating. He is saying this is where Islam is. We are the Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwa, not someone who is saying la'ibat Hashimu bil mulki fala khabarun ja'a wala wahyun nazal, that the Banu Hashim have played with the mulk. So Imam is showing them that this is the difference. On this side there is Sharibul Khamr, there is a drunkard. On this side there is a house where revelation is coming. You will see that there is a pattern. Imam is bringing this awakening within the people as to who they were, what was their status. Even on the day of Ashura, in the middle of the battlefield, Imam says to them, Ansibuni man ana. Look at me and then tell me who I am. ثم ارجعوا إلى أنفسكم وعاتبوها. Then go back to your souls and ask yourselves a question. هل يحل لكم قتلي? Is it permissible for you to kill me? No. And then he again talks about his family as to who they are, so that the people do not forget. Whatever propaganda was being spread, that propaganda should not fool the people of that time. Even in the battlefield, Imam says, is Ja'far Tayyar not from our family? Is Hamza Sayyidul Shuhada not from our family? Awalastubna binta nabiyikum? Am I not the son of the daughter of your Nabi? You recite La ilaha illallah. You say Muhammadur Rasulullah. Am I not the son of the daughter of your prophet? So you see, Imam alayhi salam is again reminding the people, telling them who he is, not to listen to the propaganda that was there, that was taking them away from the true and Islam original. Allahu Akbar. Janab Zainab in her khutbah is doing the same thing. Janab Zainab in her khutbah is again telling the people, whoever was the audience at that particular time, Janab Zainab stands before Yazid. Whenever I read this khutbah of Janab Zainab, I am astonished, shocked. I don't understand how Janab Zainab did what she did. After having gone through the trauma of Karbala, after seeing her Hussain, after seeing Abbas being slain, after seeing Ali Asghar, Ali Akbar, Janab Zainab comes. This is a woman that has marks on her back of the lashes. This is a woman who is tied in ropes. When she speaks to Yazid, Allahu Akbar, the strength of Janab Zainab, she says to Yazid, Amin al-adli yabna tulaqa. Again, she is separating the two. Is it fair, O the son of the one who was freed by my grandfather? Yabna tulaqa. She is separating him. You are talking about Islam. You are saying you are the Caliph of the Muslim Ummah. Amin al-adli yabna tulaqa. Is it fair, O the son of the freed slaves of my grandfather? Is it fair that your women are free and the daughters of Rasulullah are in a state in which they are? And then she says to Yazid, audaciously, fakid kaidak. Do what you want to do. Plot whatever plan you want to plot. Try whatever you wish to try. فَوَاللَّهِ, by Allah, لَا تَمْحُوا ذِكْرَنَا وَلَا تَبْلُغُ غَايَتَنَا. You will not be able to wipe our mention in history. You will not be able to do it. And you will not be able to reach the lofty mission and legacies of our family. Again, she is separating. You are Yabnat Tulaqa. We are the household of Ahlul Bayt. Why was she doing this? Even Imam Zainul Abidin, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh, in the darbar of Yazid, he does exactly the same thing. You will see the pattern. Sham was a place where the people, through the propaganda, had even forgotten who Ali ibn Abi Talib was, or did not even know him in some cases. When these people of Sham heard about the martyrdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Masjid Kufa, while he was praying his salat, when he said, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba, when the people of Sham were told that Ali ibn Abi Talib has been martyred in the mosque inside Kufa, you know what the question they asked? What was Ali doing in the mosque? To them, Ali was not something that had anything to do with the mosque. That was the brainwashing that was done in Sham. Here, the mission of Imam Zainul Abidin was exactly the same thing as Zainab's and that of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Not only to expose who they were, but to tell the people who they themselves were. I do not wish to recite the khutbahs. When you do get a chance, please read these sermons of Imam and look at the pattern of what is happening. In the middle of the darbar of Yazid, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam enters, chained, women without veils standing with him, made to stand outside the darbar of Yazid for 72 hours while the darbar was being prepared. By who? By the VIPs, by the heads of armies, by academics, by intellectuals, by the people who were invited, by heads of states, until they all arrived. That's when Imam Zainul Abidin enters, so that people see the sorry state of these people. And the brainwashing and the propaganda that had taken place was showing these individuals to be those who are rebellious. And Imam needed to clarify that position, that there is no rebelliousness here. The idea is not of rebelliousness. The idea here is that they are claiming a wrong claim, The true Islam lies in the hands of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And so he uses this opportunity while he is in that state which is perceived by the people as weak. A poet in Urdu says, Sajjad ko mat samjho, zanjeer ke qabze mein. Never think that Sajjad was in control of the zanjeer that he was wearing. No, he was controlling the zanjeer. In his khutbah in Sham, Imam Zainul Abidin says again exactly the same thing. What Janabi Zainab did previously, she actually laid the foundations for Imam Zainul Abidin to deliver an powerful khutbah in Sham. So the first thing he does in the Darbar of Sham is Man arafani faqad arafani. Those who know me know me. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَعْرِفْنِي, and those who don't know me, أَنْبَأْتُ بِحَسَبِي وَنَسَبِي. Let me tell you who I am. Let me tell you of my family and my lineage. Let me tell you where I come from and who I come from. And then he introduced himself. أَنَا ابْنُ مَكَّةَ وَمِنَا. I am the son of Makkah and Mina. أَنَا ابْنُ زَمْزَمَ وَصَفَا. I am the son of Zamzam and Safa. أَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ عُرِجَ بِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. I am the son of the one who was taken for Mi'raj. And he carries on and he talks about who he is, and the revelations came to his household. So the people who are listening in the darbar, no matter where they had come from and no matter what that status, know who Imam Zainul Abidin is. And then he exposes Yazid, so that the people now know who the Ahlul Bayt are. And then he exposes Yazid there, just like Janabi Zainab did in her khutbah. There comes a time when Imam Zainul Abidin passionately says who he is, to the extent that he comes to a point where he then recites the Masa'ib, and he says, Ana ibn Fatima al-Zahra. I am the son of Fatima al-Zahra. Ana ibn Khadija al-Kubra. I am the son of Khadija al-Kubra. And then he starts to cry and weep. And as he cries, sobbing away, he says, I am the son of the one who was slain without a drop of water in Karbala. I am the son of the one whose head was placed on a spearhead. Imam Zainul Abidin comes. When this point reaches, the people, the commotion, there are people who are crying and sobbing listening to what Imam, they are shocked at who this family is. At the same time, there is a fear that Yazid is going to be exposed now, and that the claim that he makes of being the caliph of the Muslim Ummah is in danger. So Yazid calls upon a muazzin to deliver the adhan. The muazzin comes and delivers the adhan. When the adhan comes, Imam Zainul Abidin keeps quiet. But when it reaches to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, now he exposes Yazid. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness that Muhammad is the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam alayhi salam begins to speak again. Ya Yazid, O Yazid, Muhammadun hadha jaddi am jadduk. Tell me, this Muhammad, whose adhan was just in whose name was recited in this adhan, is he your grandfather? Is he my grandfather? And then he says, فَإِنْ زَعَمْتَ أَنَّهُ جَدُّكَ فَقَدْ كَذِبْتَ وَأَثَمْتَ. If you claim he was your grandfather, then indeed you have said a blatant lie and you have committed a sin. وَإِنْ قُلْتَ أَنَّهُ جَدِّي. And if you say that this man whose name has been mentioned in the adhan is my grandfather, فَلِمَا قَتَلْتَ عِتْرَتَهُ وَسَبَأْتَ نِسَاءَهُ. Then why did you kill his family and took his women captive? Here Yazid is exposed. That was the mission of Imam alayhi salam. Here Yazid is exposed. And then he says, هَلْ فِيكُمْ جَدُّهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ غَيْرِي. Is there anyone amongst you whose grandfather is Rasulullah other than me? So Imam alayhi salam had this, how to remind the people, how to tell them who he was. And he carried on, even in his chains, to expose Yazid and to remind the people of who he was. Another challenge that the Imam had was how to make sure that the mission was unnoticed. That whatever he was doing as far as teaching the legacy of Rasulullah and the reason for which Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam gave his life, how to keep it alive and how to keep the lessons and the teachings going. If I talk about this, it requires another session to talk about this particular aspect of the mission, where Imam Zainul Abidin, through supplications and du'as, keeps the mission of Rasulullah alive. The book Sahifa Sajjadiyah that we have. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. In terms of supplications, it is the most beautiful of the du'as. It has philosophies, teachings in every aspect of our growth, our personal growth. And Sayfa Sajjadiyah is a book that is on our shelves in every household. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to read and study this book that Imam Zainul Abidin said. That Imam Zainul Abidin has given to you and I to read and to study and to draw lessons from it and to try and to apply it into our lives. Sahifa as-Sajjadiyah or Sahifa Kamil. So Imam alayhi salam then made sure that the mission of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam and the book of Allah and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam remains alive. The development of the Shia community individually and collectively. So he started the Sayfa Sajjadiyah, or this dua, through supplications that Imam alayhi salam carried on with the mission. Nobody had any objection. Nobody can have any objection in you supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam used supplication to remain unnoticed from keeping the mission of Rasulullah alive. And then Imam alayhi salam establishes the Aza, or what we understand as the Azadari of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to make sure that the mission of Rasulullah and the mission of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, which is the same as that of Rasulullah, remains alive. At the time when there is hostility, at the time when the persecution is taking place, Imam alayhi salatu wasalam established these foundations of Azadari, where he used as a son of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He saw what no son had seen or has seen. He saw his entire family and his brothers wiped out in one single day. He saw how thirsty they were. He saw his uncle Abbas, whose hands were severed. So in Medina and anywhere he was, when he was invited for a wedding, we hear this in the majalis. When he was invited for weddings, Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam used to say, I will come, but let us remember the masa'ib of my father Hussain. Keep a majlis. And I'm using the word majlis because that is what we are used to. Keep the majlis and I will come. When he was invited for marriage, he used to say, keep a majlis and I will come. He used to find poets and he used to tell the poets to come. and say 2 lines of the musibah of Imam al-Hussein. 2 lines, and he used to award them and reward them handsomely, just because they used to recite the Masa'ib, because the Masa'ib was one of the fundamental things that he wanted to be there, because it will keep the mission of Hussein alive as long as the hearts are in flame of the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. In the Masa'ib, we also hear that Imam, when he used to pass through the streets of Medina, and if there was a butcher who was selling meat, when they used to see Imam Zainul Abidin come, they used to cover the meat. Why? If it wasn't covered, Imam alayhi salam would see, and he would start to cry and ask the butcher, when you slaughtered this animal, tell me, did you give water to this animal? And if the butcher said yes, he did, then Imam alayhi salam said, but my father died without a drop of water given to him. The reason for all this is that Imam needed to keep the flame of Azadari alive, but at the same time, he needed to do it in a manner that it was unnoticed. Who would object to a son crying for his father who was slain without water and without food, and whose family was wiped out? Who would have an objection? All this is happening under the circumstances where things are hostile, where persecution is taking place, where people are being killed. And under those circumstances, Imam establishes all this to make sure that the Aza of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is alive. And through this Aza, they uphold the legacy of Rasulullah, that the Shi'as uphold the teachings of Rasulullah, that they uphold the teachings of Quran, that they apply them into their lives. All this is done by Imam because of that reason. The impact of what Janab Zainab did, what Imam Hussain alayhi salam did, what Imam as-Sajjad in particular did after the event of the day of Ashura, the impact of this is that it paved way for the Imams later to develop the Shia community with ease. The impact of this was that Imam alayhi salam collapsed the power of Banu Umayyah. It brought the power of Banu Umayyah to their knees. The impact of this was that the 5th and the 6th Imam alayhi salam were able to establish the madrasa with ease, where there were the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. This was the contribution of Imam Zainul Abidin and Bibi Zainab. Now, having said this, I am looking at myself and I ask myself, where am I now with regard to Azadari, with regard to this mission of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and where is Hussein? When we look at the community, the Shia community at large, Hussein is living in every heart, in every household. Hussein ibn Ali is there everywhere within the Shia community. You open a book of poetry, you will see Hussein. You recite Marthia, it is because of Hussein. You do Latm and Matam, it is because of Hussein. We sit in the Majlis, it is because of Hussein. We go out for Julus, it is because of Hussein. Go to our houses, we have black clothes. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Hussein. He is alive. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is alive in every household of the Shia community. He is very much alive. Everywhere we see, it is nothing but Hussein. Labbaika ya Hussein. So in our houses, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, our Imam Bargah, our mosques, our houses, everywhere Imam Hussein alayhi salam is there. In poetry, in Noha, in Marsiya, in Manqabat, Imam Hussein is there. In academia, there is not much about Imam Hussein as it ought to be. I'm not saying it is not there, but there is not much as it ought to be. The man on the street knows Nelson Mandela more than he knows Imam Hussein. The man on the street knows more about Martin Luther King than he knows about Imam Hussein. The man on the street knows more about Mahatma Gandhi than Imam Hussein alayhi salam. In our mosque, Imam Hussein is there. Within the Shia community, he is there. But come to academia, come to outside world, for example, you will see that Imam alayhi salatu wassalam is less known on the streets and in the academic world than the men names that I have mentioned before you. And when you look at Gandhi, he says that he is inspired by Hussein. He learns from Hussein. So in the academia, for example, on the streets, this is the situation. In the academia, there is not much as it ought to be. When I say it is not there, there is no intellectualization of the central themes of Karbala. Themes such as justice of Hussein, human rights that Hussein stood for, morality that Hussein stood for. There is not much on intellectualization of the central themes of this justice, human rights, morality, and all these things that Imam Hussein alayhi salam stood for. And so it is only a name in the academia that people read who are interested. And we find Hussein ibn Ali in the media. Allahu Akbar. They are probably the most unjust in trying to give a perspective to the world. In media, Imam Hussein alayhi salam is seen as a tragic hero. In the media, Imam Hussein is seen as an emotive personality. In the media, the whole event of Karbala is seen as a battle of Karbala. 30,000 against 72. Was this a battle or was it a massacre? And what the media does as far as Imam Hussein alayhi salam is concerned and the followers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is concerned, they are very unjust. What the media does, it sees somebody expressing himself for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it takes a picture of that individual or hundreds of individuals. It puts it in the newspaper on the day of Ashura, and then it puts a caption there to say, these are people who are mourning the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, who was martyred 1400 years ago. And that is it. That is all that you will see about Imam Hussein in the media. So in the community, Imam Hussein is there. But who is going to take Imam Hussein alayhi salam outside the community? Who is going to show this huge personality to the world? Who is going to show Imam Hussein alayhi salam to the world? Har qaum pukaregi hamare hai Hussein. Everyone will say, Insan ko bedar to ho lene do. Let humanity come itself to the state of awakening. Har qaum pukaregi hamare hai Hussein. Everyone will say, Hussein is mine. But when Hussein goes outside, when we take Aba Abdullah al-Hussein to the world, beyond our community, as to who he is, what personality Hussain ibn Ali is, what he stood for and what he died for. What should be the impact of Karbala today in my life? And I am talking to myself and myself. What should be the impact of Karbala? Should I, as an Azadar of Imam Hussain, not be a member, at least a member of the human rights movement in the name of Hussain? Should the human rights movement not be led by the Azadar of Imam Hussain alayhi salam? Should I not be at the forefront of civil rights for humanity? Should I, as the Azadar of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, not be at the helm of moral conduct? Should that not be the case as the Azadar? And when I look at history, I see Imam Hussain did what he did. I see Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam doing the same thing. I see all this. The whole foundation of Azadari was laid on rights, justice, morality. Should I not be, as the Azadar, taking myself through the heat of Azadari, through my matam, through my marsiya, through the majalis, through all this? Should I not be now moving and ready to be someone who stands for what Hussain stood for, whether it is in the family, whether it is in the community or beyond? Should my moral and ethical conduct not be the same as that of Hussain ibn Ali? So beyond Karbala, the 10 days of Muharram have gone. Some of us will show up again next year when the first of Muharram starts. Some of us will show up again on the day of Ashura. And then we will disappear. Our Zadari is done. It's finished. We have wept on Imam Hussain alayhi salam. It's over. Khalas. Imam Hussain alayhi salam even today says, Hal min nasirin yansurna? Is there anyone who will come to my assistance? Is there anyone who will come to my aid? You know when Imam Hussain said this statement, when there was no Asghar, when there was no Akbar, when there was no Qasim, when there was nobody was there. Nobody was there other than Aliun al-Asghar. And he said, Hal min nasirin yansurna? Is there anyone who will come to our aid? Do you think Imam thought that there is somebody within the ranks of these people who is going to come and help him? After giving so many khutbahs throughout the day? Do you think Imam thought these people are going to come and assist him? Who was he saying, Hal min nasirin yansurna to? Who? He was calling upon those who were still in the spines of their fathers and wombs of their mothers. The voice of Hal min nasirin yansurna reverberates every day in our lives. Every day. Stand up with me, Imam Hussain says. Imam Sajjad says, come through this Azadari, through Imam Hussain, through seeing what happened to us. Stand together with Abu Abdullah al-Hussain and let us move Hussain beyond our mosques, outside to the world. Let us show the world that Hussain is a universal personality, not only for the Shia community. Hal min nasirin yansurna? Is there anyone who will come to our aid? 11th of Muharram was not an easy day for the Ahlul Bayt. Imam Zainab al-Abidin was heavily chained. Imam alayhi salatu wassalam was in chains. Arbab of Maqatil say that they put the collar on Imam Zainab al-Abidin, a collar made of metal, and it had spikes from inside the collar to make it difficult for Imam to move his head. That was the collar they put on Imam alayhi salatu wassalam. His feet were tied. The ladies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, now the tents were burnt. The tents were looted. Their veils were taken from them. Ropes were tied around them. In that state, they were brought to the body of Imam Hussain alayhi salam that was trampled under the hoofs of the horses. The body of Abu Abdullah was trampled under the hoofs of the horses. Imam Zainul Abidin, Janab Zainab, Janab Sakina, and the ladies came to see the state of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to bid farewell to him. Every other body was taken except the body of Imam. I do not know, wallah, I cannot even imagine how Imam Zainul Abidin saw his father in the state in which he saw. Wallah, there is no way we can know what happened to Sakina when she saw that body. I do not know what Zainab did when she saw this body. But Azadaru, there is a lot written about the state of the body of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and no writer, no speaker can do any justice. But we can probably imagine what state it was in through the words of Janab Zainab. When she saw the body of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, do you know what she said? She said, Anta akhi, are you my brother Hussain? She looked at the body of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and she said, this is Zainab. She says, Anta akhi, are you my brother Hussain? That can give you and I the idea of what Zainab was seeing. Perhaps we can never have that idea of what Zainab saw. Anta akhi, are you my brother Hussain? And then she looked towards the heavens and said, Allahumma taqabbal minna hadha al-qurban. Oh Allah, accept this sacrifice from us. Hussain, it is Hussain. Zainab is saying, Allahumma taqabbal minna hadha al-qurban. 11th. The captives' caravan is about to move. Zainab says, Anta akhi, are you my brother Hussain? Ayatullah Jawad Amuli, in one of his masaibs that I heard, he says, Janab Zainab left Karbala. She was a captive. She was with Zainab, with Kulthum and the ladies and Sakina and everyone. She then came to Kufa. She did what she did in Kufa. She then came to Sham. She was made to stand outside for 72 hours. She stood in Sham. She delivered the khutbah. She lost Sakina in Sham. She looked after the ladies in Sham. Ayatollah Jawad Amuli says, can you imagine how exhausted she was? How tired she was? Can you imagine what was happening to her all this time? When she returned back from Sham to Karbala and she came to the grave of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, this is a woman who asked the question to Imam Hussein, Anta akhi, are you my brother? He says when she came to Sham and she sat by the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and telling him, oh Hussein, I have completed the mission in Sham, but Hussein, I have lost your Sakina. Her state was such, how exhausted she must have been. Ayatollah Jawad Amuli is saying, it would not be a wonder if there was a voice that came out of the grave and said, Auntie, Ukhti, oh Zainab, are you my sister Zainab? سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Matam Hussein.